Welcome to Don't Give Up on Testicular Cancer, a podcast where testicular cancer survivors, caregivers, and others who have navigated the cancer journey share their stories. The podcast comes to you from the Max Mallory Foundation, a nonprofit family foundation focused on educating about testicular cancer in honor and in memory of Max Mallory, who died in 2016 at the young age of 22 from testicular cancer. Had he survived, Max wanted to help young adults with cancer. This podcast helps meet that goal. Here now is your host, Joyce Lofstrom, Max's mom and a young adult cancer survivor.
With me today is Patrick Frank, and he values humor when dealing with testicular cancer, as he will share with us. He threw a farewell to Righty Party the night before his orchiectomy in 2021. His successful video production company, Patchbay Media, operates with offices in London and Washington, D.C. He's a father of two boys, a marathon runner, and a book author. So he has plenty to share with us on our podcast. He grew up in the northwest suburbs of Chicago, not far from me as well. So Patrick, thanks for joining me today.
Great to see you, Joyce. Thanks for having me.
Well, I want to start with your farewell party. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I mean the whole thing was kind of a blur, as you can imagine, but I just feel like there's kind of two people when you get a cancer diagnosis. There are people that really just kind of are private and they just kind of want to deal with it in their own way. And then there are annoying people like me that would just want to like tell everybody about their testicles. And I'm like, hey guys, like I got this crazy thing I'm dealing with, and here's what's going on, and like I can use your support. I mentioned that I grew up about 10 minutes from where you live, and just through Facebook and things like that. I had a friend of mine a friend from high school who I hadn't talked to in 20 years or something like that, who privately messaged me on Facebook, and he was like, hey man, I had stage 2 testicular cancer a couple years ago. We kind of reconnected through that, and had a couple phone calls about what to expect. And he had to do chemo and what it was like being in that room with everybody. But the one thing that he said, I'll never forget, he's like, if I were to do it again, I would do what you did and be very public about it and tell people what's going on and really try to stay positive and be a resource and things like that. I try to be a glass half full kind of guy all the time. And if anything, if I can put a positive spin on something and make someone smile, like that's what I want to do. And so, yeah, so the farewell to Righty Party, I went and bought a big R balloon that we had because it was on Zoom because it was like peak COVID.
Right.
And we had like, I don't know, 20 or 30 friends and family join the Zoom call. Friend of a friend who I connected with is a cartoon artist. He works on like DC Comics, like Batman and stuff. Like he's an amazing illustrator and stuff. I'll send you these afterwards. You can maybe like layer them on top or something. But he made some cartoons of like my testicle through the years. So it's like in the stroller, and then he's got like a skateboard and then a microphone. And so I found some like old pictures of me, and I did like a little slideshow to the tune of Sarah McLachlan's I Will Remember You, of course. It was like 20 minutes, and it was really great to see everybody and obviously get that support. And I played the silly video, and I talked a little bit about what I had learned about testicular cancer and what was going on and what the recovery was like and like all this stuff. And since then, it's just been like, someone's going to know somebody who's going to get this diagnosis. And I hope that they think of me.
Right.
Like someone's brother-in-law, someone's cousin, someone's coworker. And it's just like, oh yeah, like there's that guy I'm friends with on Facebook, or there's this guy I went to high school with, like whatever it is. Like my goal is just to be that person for whenever someone needs it. So that was the farewell to Righty Party. But I love how they worded it when the UK media picked it up, and they're like, man's farewell before cancer surgery. Super clickbaity. I didn't even realize it at first until someone pointed it out to me, which I thought
really? You approached this diagnosis with humor, and I really think that's one of the best medicines we can use for health. Tell us now about your story with testicular cancer.
Yeah, sure. So it was early 2021. And just over the course of a couple of weeks, just in the shower and thinking, well, I got two of these things and they should feel the same. and one of them feels a lot harder than the other one. That's
Oh,
weird. And like at one point I'm like running my thumb through this groove and I'm just like this feels like alien or something. And because of the pandemic, I didn't do a physical. I was pretty good about doing the physical, right?
right.
So my kids were born in at the end of 2014 and in 2017. So they were 5 and 3 or something at that time. And always had been pretty good about getting the physical, getting the annual checkup, whatever. I didn't do it for obvious
Right.
reasons with COVID. And so by the early 2021, and this is kind of the new normal, I was like, all right, why don't I go get the checkup and I'll mention this to the doctor, right? And so that's what I did. So I did all the blood work, had the telehealth meeting to talk through the results and like, yeah, you probably got high cholesterol, like all that stuff. And then I just kind of mentioned, I was like, oh, by the way, one of my testicles feels a little hard. Was that something that I should be concerned about? Whatever. And she was basically like, if you're concerned about it, I'll put an order in for an ultrasound. You just go to the hospital, outpatient, they'll just take a look and then we'll talk about it. And so I did that a couple of days later. And then that was a whole experience because I had this like student kind of like getting in there and
Oh,
going, oh, I'm gonna have to get my teacher on this one. And then basically that guy did the whole thing again. And at some point I was just like, they definitely saw something. Like this is
right.
doesn't feel
Don't
routine,
you?
like you're on your way. And sure enough, I got the call from my doctor the next day. I remember it was a Friday, and they're like, "Yeah, you definitely have a tumor on your testicle. We booked you in for urology first thing Monday." And then what was wild is because it was that weekend, it was a Friday. I remember this also vividly because that evening I'd started this crazy running challenge with a friend called 4x4x48. This guy David Goggins was doing this. You run 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. So it basically took me from Friday afternoon all the way to Sunday morning or something like that. So I remember we had brunch, we had our families run with us for that last 4 miles. And obviously, we had run through the night for 2 nights, and we had some prosecco or something. I remember joining a friend's like Zoom baby shower. I took a nap. I woke up the next day, and I thought that they were going to go in and be like, okay, like we're gonna do a biopsy, and we're gonna see what's going on. No, they were just like, that's got to go. We got to get that thing out. I was like, okay, and obviously they answered all my questions, and they're like, you got two of them, and your other one's fine. So we got to get this scheduled. And so yeah, so I had that farewell to Righty Party and had the surgery about 3 weeks after that. So that was probably mid to late April 2021. Yeah.
So that was it for you. Who, in terms of treatment?
Yeah, I got really lucky. I caught it early, and I remember doing the MRI like the same day, like right after the orchiectomy. They sent it off to pathology, confirmed it was cancerous, and it was pure seminoma. It was like the less active, but it's also
Right.
like the rarer version. I feel like most people get the non-seminoma. I forget like all the terminology. It's been
Right.
a minute,
Right.
but
Right.
basically I got super lucky like on all fronts. So yeah, luckily it hadn't spread. Fast forward, I will share, that's 2021. 2022, I moved here to the UK to London and NHS is like all over it. Like I didn't even have an oncologist in the US. I just had urology because again, I met with an oncologist. It's all kind of fuzzy who all the different
Yeah.
specialists I met with and stuff. But as soon as I got here and I was like, hey, I had this thing last year and I need to get checked out and like blah blah blah. And the surveillance regimen was like double what it was in the US. Like in the US, I'd go in every 6 months to get a chest x-ray. Here, I was doing an MRI every like 3 months.
Oh,
It was
wow. Okay.
weird. Yeah, it was like very comprehensive and I was very impressed. And I sort of joke, but you get what you pay for. It feels like the opposite over here. I mean, when it comes to cancer, NHS does not mess around. And
Yeah.
like you need a hip replacement or something like that. I know there's like horror stories about that kind of stuff, but like cancer, like no questions. Like you were gonna get great care. And like that's been amazing. They found an enlarged lymph node in 2023. And it was obviously like right in the path where they're concerned about it. And they're telling me about this gnarly surgery to like go in and take it out and do this kind of thing. And so obviously that was just like, oh my God, like what am I gonna do? Long story short, it just didn't feel like the right thing to do to like do
Right.
this surgery. It was basically like, it's sitting here at whatever 10 centimeters or 10 millimeters or something like that. And I was like, okay, well, is it getting bigger or getting smaller? They're like, it's really just like staying the same size, like every 3 months. So I would do a PET scan and an MRI, just kind of ping pong back and forth every 3 months for like a year, maybe a year and a half until finally it just shrunk or went away. It was
Wow.
unbelievable.
It went
So
away. Well,
I got super lucky. So I don't know if it was unrelated or I don't know what the deal was, but yeah, something I just like this didn't feel right to rush into surgery. And I totally respect like I have something that's potentially cancerous in my body. Like I got to get it out immediately. Understandable. Something just felt weird to me. It just didn't
Yeah.
feel like I didn't. Yeah. So that worked out really great. And then of course now like I just passed the 5 year mark and it's been great. And I'm running this marathon for Robin Cancer Trust, which is the UK's testicular and ovarian cancer charity. I'm organizing a charity
Oh, you
comedy
are?
night
Okay. Yeah.
in May as well. So I was just talking to my host and MC for that today. Can do some promo. Got some like big name people. It's really awesome. So yeah, just like grateful to be able to do all this stuff and happy to do it and raising awareness and sharing my story. So
Well, and I think you talking about the immediacy of your care back when you were first diagnosed, I think that's such an important thing for listeners to just pay attention to because you don't any cancer you don't want to mess around with, but this cancer I know they really want to treat it, get the testicle out, and as soon as
right.
possible,
And that's
you
the thing,
know.
right? With the biopsy or lack thereof, it's like there's so many systems down there. Like you don't want to go in and poke something and have these
Right.
cells move around between all the different all the different systems down there. So that made sense to me. It was like, okay, like you're telling me I'll be fine. Like you take it out and I'll basically be fine probably. And they're like, go ahead, yeah, do it.
Who
Yeah.
and you kind of answered this with your party, but who was your biggest support for all of this going through this cancer diagnosis?
Oh, my wife definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I also got to give a shout out to my brother too because he was doing like a travel nurse thing, and so he was kind of moving around every 3 to 6 months, and he had little kids too, and so he had just come back from like North Dakota or Idaho or like you go all these like really random places, and he was moving up to New Hampshire, and he was like, "Oh, well, we're kind of traveling anyway. What if we come down to Virginia to see you?" Because I was outside Washington D.C. at that point in Virginia. He's like, "What if we come down and we'll hang out with you for a couple days, and then like watch the kids, and then we'll go up to New Hampshire." And so that was awesome. I mean, being able to have family and like having the timing work out like that. So big thanks to my brother for that. I'll never forget
Yeah.
that one. That was really great.
You mentioned all the things you're doing to give back. Can you tell us a little more about the Robin Trust?
Yeah, Robin Cancer Trust was started in 20 maybe like 10 or so years ago. Toby Freeman's the founder. He lost his brother Robin Freeman to testicular cancer in 2011 or 2012. I think Robin was about 24 years old or something like that. And I've just found him on LinkedIn because he had
Yep.
this like big cardboard nutsack on his profile picture, and I was like, I want to be friends with this guy. And then just kind of learning about all the work that they do and seeing like it just felt like their approach is like very similar to mine, right? It's
Yeah.
like outlandish and loud and attention grabbing and like that sort of thing. And so it's been really great. I was honored to a couple weeks ago. They're based in Essex, which is just outside London. So like they're an hour and a half northeast of London. They're based in a town called Colchester, and they are the primary beneficiaries of the Colchester Half Marathon, which brings like 4,000 runners. Like it's a pretty big deal. It's a really well organized event,
Yep.
and they're the charity beneficiaries. So I think they had something like 80 or 100 runners for Robin Cancer Trust this year, which is awesome. And Toby couldn't run it because he had a chest infection or something. And so he asked if someone from the team that's running the London Marathon, in a couple weeks, if they wanted to wear his big ball bag costume. And I was like, okay, yeah, I should probably do it. So that was really fun. And a lot of people call me Toby, like that's cool. You're on the course and it's a half marathon, so it's taking you 2 hours or so. And during that 2 hours, it was really cool because people would just come up to me and they're like, I had cancer or my spouse had cancer or something like that. Other people were just like, oh man, like I can't get beaten by a ball bag, right? Like I gotta go faster. So it was really just like I just felt like a magnet for whatever people needed, like either sharing their
Yeah. Yeah.
story and I'd share mine or again, just motivation or just a smile and a high five to a kid on the course or something like that. So it was a really cool experience.
Yeah. Were you a runner before you started to do this?
I was casually a runner, but that is like probably one of the biggest takeaways from this whole cancer experience. It's just like appreciating my body more and
Yeah.
just, staying active and setting goals. And yeah, I just feel much more invested in my own fitness and health. And yeah, and when I first moved to London, so again, I moved in the summer of 2022. Everyone always applies for a ballot spot for the London Marathon. I think this past year they had like 1 million
Oh
They had like a
my,
million,
really?
yeah, applications for 50,000 spots. And so it wasn't quite as many back in 2023, but it was still a lot. And I got one of those ballot spots. And so that was really like a gift from the universe to like, this is your thing, like go do this. And so it was my second marathon. I ran a really bad marathon just kind of on a whim back in 2019 in Washington, the Marine Corps marathon. But this one I was like, I'm going to train really hard. I'm going to break 4 hours. And then I just made a promise to myself. I'm like, I'm going to run a marathon every year until I can't do it anymore. I just think it's a good goal. That's 3 or 4 months worth of training you got to do. And even if you're not, going for time every time, it's still, you can travel a little bit. There's like
Right.
cool marathons all over the place. And it's something you could do with friends. I've run some crazy marathons. Like I did one in France where you drink wine the whole time.
Ah,
So
during the oh,
yeah.
I think that's great.
Yeah, so that was a
Oh, I
fun
like
one.
that.
Costumes are required and it's a total party. So
Good wine
yeah, and
too in France, so you know.
yeah, it's outside Bordeaux. It's a blast. It's fantastic. But I think too, just moving here and moving from a very typical American suburban situation to being like smack dab right in the middle of London. I don't have a car, and everybody's super active. There's a million run clubs. London's like incredible for parks and green spaces and things. It's contagious, everybody's just out doing stuff all the time. And so it's really easy to stay motivated and find people to run with you.
I have to just digress for a moment and ask you about London because I've never been there, but
Sure.
I'm a big Beatles fan. So if I got there, I'd
Yeah.
do all that. And I have friends not too far away, but it sounds like you love London. I think it would be great
Oh, yeah.
experience.
The first time I was here was when I just graduated from John Hersey High School, which I'm sure you
Okay,
know.
yeah.
And it was 2004, and we did a big family trip. My mom, because it's the area. So my mom, there's like some like jazz radio station she doesn't even listen to.
Okay.
And they call her name on the radio. They're like, "You won 2 tickets to anywhere United flies." I'm like, someone had called her and they're like, "Hey, they just called your name on this random radio station." And so she called in and got the tickets. And my dad had enough frequent flyer miles. So we flew the family over. We did London, Liverpool, and Dublin. And of course, we
Oh,
did
Liverpool
all
too.
of them. So I have a picture of myself like crossing Abbey Road when I was
Yeah.
18 years old. And we did the Magical Mystery Tour up in Liverpool. And yeah, we did all the stuff. And the Cavern Club.
The cavern. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the
That's
original,
great.
but it's
I
still pretty
know. Yeah.
cool. It's still pretty
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, it's
Okay.
pretty great. Yeah, absolutely. Come visit.
Yeah, I will. So the other thing I wanted to mention, you have such a great attitude about talking about your cancer and tell us a little bit. I mean, I think it's just you, but your approach to that and being open about it, because not all men want to do that.
Yeah, I actually think it's kind of part of a larger conversation, at least at this time in 2026. You got to compete with things like the manosphere, and anytime you hear the word masculinity, a lot of times the word toxic is before it. And
Yes.
so, again, I think it's just being confident enough to be like, yeah, like I lost a testicle. Like doesn't mean I'm any more or less
Right.
manly than anybody else. It's just like this is just what it is. And if someone could kind of capture that message and get a little bit of confidence in their situation or maybe think differently about something, then great. Totally worth it. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, we don't have to talk politics or anything like that. There definitely is a rise in, especially in like a Gen Z and, with some of these influencers and things like that around what is manly and making sure
Right.
that, your wife, girlfriend, whatever is submissive to you and like all this
Yeah.
stuff. And like, I
Yeah.
just think all of that is just trash. What is the alternative then? What does the alternative look like? And it's not exactly a clear picture potential. What is the right kind of masculinity? I think there are a lot of people are still kind of figuring out what that looks like and trying to deliver that message in an effective way and in a unified way. I'll just kind of leave it at that. So
Yeah, that's good. You have a successful business too, Patchbay Media, right? So tell us
yeah.
about it.
Yeah. So I went to school for media production, music production. I was working in recording studios. I was doing sound for film and stuff. But the whole time I was the guy with the mini DV camera in high school, filming stuff. And, I was always in my backyard and doing stuff with my brothers and my friends and things like that. So my first big break was I was working for NPR Music in
Okay.
Washington. So I had an internship when I was still at the University of Michigan. And so I was doing music writing and podcast production and stuff like that. And then they hired me right after I finished school. And so I moved, I had 2 suitcases at the beginning of 2008. I was like, okay, like I live here now. And I stayed for the next 14 years. I had no
Wow.
idea what was going to come of it. And they're like, yeah, well, you can be a temp and we got a job for you for 3 months and you can bounce around to other departments and stuff. And so right around 2009, that's when I really kind of saw YouTube kind of really taking off as this platform. And before then, there were a lot of different like video platforms, and I've always been interested in video. And so, bounced around like financial crisis, had some weird jobs, but I was able to start my own thing in 2013. And being in Washington is really great because you have a lot of really smart people.
Yeah.
You have a lot of really great causes and policy organizations, think tanks, and just all kinds of people just trying to do world changing work, trying to change policy, trying to
Yeah.
change public opinion, that sort of thing. I just got really lucky and I just connected with the right people. And I really had an education niche at the beginning. So we were doing stuff for like large education nonprofits and some government grantees and things like that. I've been doing this since 2013.
Yeah.
And now I have a team and we have some people in the UK and in the US. Some of our big clients are Breakthrough T1D, formerly JDRF, which is all about type 1 diabetes advocacy. We do a lot of stuff around clean energy. We work with the National Association of School Nurses. So I'm really fortunate where I don't have to make videos about like stuff you can buy on Amazon. It's all like, it's really like people centric and trying to make sure that everyone has the best possible health outcomes and the clean energy transition and things like that. So yeah, so we do animated explainers, documentary style stuff, lots of remote like this, remote interviews and things. And really it's any kind of organization that is working in policy, advocacy, or fundraising. It's really what it comes down to. Yeah. So I'm really fortunate and it's been awesome.
That's great. I have type 1 diabetes, so it's great to hear that you are
Oh,
doing
wow.
that too.
Okay.
So yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
What's next for you in life? And just anything you want to share about personal, your business, London, I
Yeah.
don't
What's
know.
next? I don't know. I feel very settled here. We travel a fair bit. I'm very lucky to be able to live in Europe, in London. And yeah, I think just in being able to spend time with my kids and have a flexible schedule and obviously being able to work for myself, and that's always been really important for me since I started doing this work. And yeah, and then just being useful. It's really just
Yeah.
like if I can help anybody out in any way, like that's what I want to do. Like sharing that commitment. And so one thing I'm doing like right before I got on the call, I'm working on a B Lab B Corp certification.
Okay.
So Patchbay, hopefully will be a benefit corporation, which again, like just based on the work that we do and how I like to run the company, also just establishes our commitment to things like equity and inclusion and climate justice and things like that. So yeah, I just want to make cool videos for great organizations, travel, hang out with my kids and my wife, and run and enjoy living in London. That's really, I don't really have too many other lofty goals other than that.
That's great though. It's a great life. And you have your marathon, it's what, April 26th, right?
April 26th, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. And then, yeah, don't really have too many other running related commitments for the rest of the year, but I'm sure I'll find something to do.
So my last question is, what song, when you hear it, do you have to sing along?
Yeah, I had a funny story for you. So it was the 4th of July of 2022, and it was a couple weeks before we moved here. And we were at a party, a 4th of July party at my wife's job, which was like really close to the White House. And it was on the roof deck. So we're hanging out and like weirdly like wasn't very well attended, and it was like catered and they had like all kinds of crazy stuff. But they had a karaoke whatever set up there. And then but it was really funny because there was only like one girl who like kept singing over and over again, and she would do like the longest songs. Like My Heart Will Go On. Like that song is like 8 minutes long, Joyce.
Okay.
So someone was like, "Oh my God, we gotta enough Katie. Like we gotta get somebody else up here." And I don't know how it happened. And I was like drinking a little bit. Someone was like, "You should go do Welcome to the Jungle." so I went over to the DJ and I was like, "All right, let me sign up for the karaoke." And so it was, "Welcome to the jungle. We got fun and games," right? And I'm like high-fiving everybody and just making a fool of myself. And so that was really fun. So every time I hear that song, I'll remember that moment, and I'll probably join in on that one.
All right. So that's your song. Okay. I like that. So, well, that's great. I think I'd pick Twist and Shout. So,
solid. Very good.
Yeah.
I visited Hamburg and Liverpool a couple years ago.
Okay.
And I don't know if like there's this crazy book. The author was inspired by the LBJ biography. There's like 6 volumes, or like 900 pages each.
By Cato, I think is the name.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah, he also did Robert Moses,
Okay.
the New York City planner. He wants to interview every single person who ever saw the Beatles. He knows like how much the Beatles made from all the gigs and stuff like that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so I read this book like in preparation for all these trips, and so I was able to know where the places were and stuff like that. And so if you really want to do a deep dive on Beatles, and the thing is, the first volume, the second volume was supposed to come out like 8 years ago, and it still hasn't come out. The first volume,
Oh,
I think, came out in 2013, and it only goes until 1962. That's
oh,
it.
62. Oh, no, you got to have more.
And it was really interesting because,
I
like,
bet. Oh, I bet
Paul
it
and John get
was. Yeah.
together when they're teenagers and they start writing, but then when they go
Yes.
to Hamburg, they're not writing anything. Like, they're
No.
just like, and so, like, a couple of the cool things about like why the Beatles are the Beatles are when they're in Hamburg, that's where they get all the great gear because they're all the American GIs would like pawn their Stratocasters and stuff.
Okay,
So
I
they
didn't
were
know
able to
that.
get all these amps and stuff that you couldn't get in Liverpool, in England at all. But then also on the recorded music front, because they're in Liverpool, they're the port town, they're getting all the singles and all the 45s, all the R&B stuff
Yeah.
before London does. So
Oh,
like,
interesting. Okay.
they're going to Nem's, I think that was Brian Epstein's family store, right? Nem's record
Yep.
store.
Yep. Yep.
They're just sitting there, just listening, taking notes, like writing down, like figuring out like what are all the hip tracks that are just coming out of America. And then they're playing them that weekend.
That's
So I think the
interesting.
combination of those things is part of the story that, is a little deeper
Yeah.
than you might find. So I could talk Beatles all day, man.
We'll come back. We'll do that. So.
Nice. Very good.
All right. Well, thanks for your time and all you're doing.
Yeah, this
for
is really great to talk
testicular
to you.
cancer. Yeah, same here. So enjoy the marathon.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you for watching this episode of Don't Give Up on Testicular Cancer. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe to our program on your favorite podcast directory. You can also visit the Max Mallory Foundation at www.maxmalloryfoundation.com/podcast to listen to previous podcast episodes or donate to the foundation. Join us again next time for another episode of Don't Give Up on Testicular Cancer.